going to talk on multi-scale patterns formed by sodium sulfate in a drying droplet of gelatin, both experiments and simulation. My co-workers are Vishwajit Rai, who has done all the experiments that we'll be talking about, Tajkera Khatun, and Shujata Tarufdar, who you've just met. The interest and importance of the study of droplets is evident in current times from the number of conferences which are dedicated exclusively to it. This is a very good review, and there is also a book by David Bruton, which was published in 2015, where there is some detail of the problem of drying droplets. Why is it so interesting? It is interesting because of the shape that a droplet creates when placed on the interface. It is not a perfect hemisphere, it is a truncated sessile drop. And because of the shape of the interface, the evaporation flux from the interface is non-uniform. It is maximum at the triple line of contact, where the droplet thickness practically goes to zero. And because of this, there is a velocity field, which is again non-uniform inside the fluid of the droplet. So much so that because of the high evaporation flux at the edge, there is a continuous radial outflow of fluid towards the edge. And this in turn creates a concentration difference and a temperature difference in the droplet, which gives rise to Marangoni effects. And so it is a whole lot of complex fluid flows that happen inside the droplets. And so when these droplets dry, they will give rise to very interesting patterns if they contain some kind of solute which is dissolved in the solvent. But if this, and the role of gels in the formation of crystal growth was long known, and if the drying droplet contains a gel as a system, then what happens, the gel inhibits the convection currents that are normally happening in a drying droplet, and it gives very interesting behavior, especially if you have a dissolved salt in the gel. So these are some of the pictures that we've obtained of experiments done in our laboratory. This is a picture which Shujata also showed. It is NaCl, sodium chloride, when it is dissolved in aqueous gelatin. And the droplet is allowed to dry, and after it dries, you see this wonderful, beautiful looking pattern here. This, again, is sodium chloride, which was dissolved in potato starch gel and allowed to dry, and it looks quite different. This is a SEM image of NaCl in gelatin, but mind you, this is a SEM image taken from this portion of this same experiment, which apparently looks empty out here, but in a SEM, it shows this beautiful fern-like pattern. And this is what I'm going to talk of here. This is sodium sulfate, which is dissolved in aqueous gelatin. When it dries, this is a portion of the pattern which is shown here, and this is what I'm going to talk of today. So the plan of talk is only 2-point agenda. I'm going to be describing experiments and observations, and then simulations and results. So the method of the experiment is very simple. You take sodium sulfate and you dissolve it in deionized water to form a solution to which you add dry gelatin powder. It is not easy to dissolve, so you have to warm it a bit and stir till it is completely dissolved. And then you just put a drop on a glass plate, and after it drops, what appears to the naked eye is structures like this, where ring-like patterns appear. The only difference between the two photographs here is that this has a transparent ring, which I do not know, perhaps is not visible. It is thicker here and thinner here. And this difference is due to difference in concentration of the salt. And the rings disappear for concentrations greater than 0.02 moles. And we also did some characterization of the fluids involved. liquids involved. So the angle of contact of sodium sulfate in gelatin is 18 plus minus 2 degrees. And we measured surface tension and viscosity. It is interesting to note that gelatin and sodium sulfate, they have surface tensions which are almost half that of sodium sulfate alone. And their viscosities are also much higher than sodium sulfate alone. They matter in the pattern formation. And the ambient conditions, temperature was 30 degrees centigrade, relative humidity 52%. And then when we viewed under the microscope, we saw that those rings were not really rings, single rings, but bands of rings. And the rings inside the bands are not equispaced, and there is an order in spacing. So this is a schematic of what different portions of the droplet, dry droplet, looks like under the microscope. So if we move from central outwards, this is what the center looks like. Then the layer next to it looks like this under the microscope. Then a little further away, you see something like this. And then still further away, you see it's dried a bit, and the black portions show that now it is a bit quite dry. And this is the outermost layer which appeared as the transparent layer. And so what we see is that the set of rings have dendritic crystals growing in between them. So this was observed from the microscope studies. We also did SEMS, and in the SEM images, these diamond-shaped crystallites of sodium sulfate were clearly visible. And so we do a pattern analysis of the experimental results. So here what we plot is the ring number versus the radius of the rings as measured from the center of the droplet. So you can see that there are a number of rings clustered together, and then there is a gap in the ring spacing. Again a number, quite a few rings, and again a spacing, and this continues. So it looks like a staircase. However, if you look at any portion of the ring, you blow it up, then you see that the same kind of staircase structure is visible. See here, the length scale is from 4 to 4.75 millimeter, whereas this was from 1 to 6 millimeters. So even a small portion, when it is magnified, you see the same ring structure. So we say that the pattern shows a self-similarity, and it resembles the devil's staircase in fractals, which ideally, for a devil's staircase, you have an infinite number of steps between any two steps. But of course, ours is a finite system, a real system, and therefore there is a finite cut. And we also did a cumulative distribution of the step lengths. That is, we plotted the number of steps with length greater than or equal to a size L, and called that NL, and plotted NL against L. That means the first point here would be the shortest step length, and that means every other step is greater than that, so it really is the total number of steps. And the last point here is the largest step, and there is only one such step. And they can be fitted approximately by this form. So this is the experimental part that was done, and it is reported in this paper. Now, so we tried to think of how this could happen. So our first idea was a very simple idea, and we tried to test it with a simple deterministic model, where we said that there are only two things happening actually inside the droplet. So there is an advection diffusion process and an only diffusion. I'll explain. So let us look at this schematic. Let us assume that somewhere here is the center of the droplet, and because the high evaporative flux at the edge of the ring, so there is an outward radial flow of fluid, and at the edge the solvent evaporates and deposits the first ring layer here. So this is of, say, radius 1. But as soon as the first ring is deposited, the concentration here is high, and that in turn creates a diffusion, inward diffusion. Whereas the advection is still happening, so there is a juxtaposition of advection and diffusion, And so somewhere in between, you have a second ring precipitating if the concentration exceeds a critical value. So this creates ring 2. But when you have ring 1 and ring 2, both of here, the concentrations are high. In fact, the concentrations were measured by Kaya et al., who said that the concentration at the ring positions are not symmetric, and they have roughly a profile like this. So between two deposited rings, there is again further diffusion, and somewhere in between them, you may expect a third ring to form. And so here, to us, it seemed that it is possible to create rings with this simple idea. So we did a deterministic kind of study where we said that when advection and diffusion is involved, let's say that rings 1 and rings 2, ring 2, they maintain a constant ratio B, and between diffusive rings, where only diffusion is taking place, they create a third ring maintaining this kind of a ratio. These are just the general relationships between the n plus 1th ring radius and the nth ring at any point of time using these two processes. So this is what happens. So you see, if I assume that the black bars here were deposited by advection diffusion, and the blues are formed only by diffusion, so we do see that there is a hierarchy and there is a bunching of the rings. So this was promising. So what we did next was we tried to do a stochastic simulation, but we did it initially, we've done it on a rectangular geometry on a square grid where the solution is distributed uniformly here. We've applied periodic boundary conditions, and we've discretized the advection and diffusion equations. However, this is an advection equation with not a constant velocity, because ours is not a constant velocity. And so precipitation occurs if there is a critical value exceeded. And these are our results. We've varied the angle of contact because that is contained in the evaporation flux value, velocity. So basically, advection is controlled by the angle of contact variation. These are for different contact angles with diffusion coefficients same, and you can see that you can get different ring patterns, and ours seem to be, the Na2SO4 situation seems to be closest represented by lower angles of contacts. And we do get that kind of a staircase pattern here. And the next study was done with diffusion coefficients differing, varied, and constant angle of contact. Here we see that higher diffusion values give this. And the next part was to see about the dendritic growths, and between any two rings which are already precipitated, it's quite dry, and at a point will come when there is no liquid contact between rings. So we say that there is some kind of ionic attraction between the solute, which is trapped in isolated droplets, to the solute rings on the solute on the rings. And we say that they can attach to the solute from the droplets can attach to the rings precipitated with a probability which is proportional to the concentration gradient, and it takes care of surface tension because K is the number of neighbors, second nearest neighbors included. And B is a parameter which determines how important is surface tension. And this kind of an algorithm we've used earlier to get this kind of dendritic crystal growth. And we get, finally, this is a time development, and we see that we can get dendritic patterns resembling what we've got. So these are what I've already discussed, and I'd just like to say that the whole pattern encompasses multiple scales, therefore, from nanosite-sized single crystals to micron-sized dendrites, and finally to rings with diameters of the order of centimeters. My time is over. This is some things that we have to do yet, and thank you very much for your attention.
One quick question. you haven't incorporated elasticity in your.
Gelatin is, I would think, more viscoelastic, right?
Right. I mean, but isn't the elastic modulus?
I think
higher than
the
the viscous
viscoelasticity, that's the point, that it is a gel and it inhibits the normal convection currents, which is normally there, easily seen and responsible for coffee ring effects.
Right.
Gel, because it is a gel, it inhibits that flow. You see, its viscosity is changing, so it's not easy to understand all the the Marangoni flow effects, say, for example, it's not clearly understood. There is viscosity changing with time. There is also friction with the substrate, which we've not accounted for. So it's not, everything is not there in this model. It's a very simple model. Our whole idea was to see if we can obtain the hierarchy of rings. If rings, what are the main fluid processes, dynamical processes, which can give rise to it? But of course, all those things need to be factored in.
Because the reason why I'm saying it is because your rings also had some, fiber-like growths out of it. So if you took some elasticity.
Like growths are crystallites, which are
Right.
growing from the droplets, which have lost contact, because advection and diffusion cannot happen if you don't have a liquid contact between drops. There cannot be any flow, direct flow.
Sure.
So then we say it is a different mechanism coming into play, probably ionic attraction, electrostatic attraction, and there the solute which is trapped in the isolated droplets are coming and attaching themselves to the rings and giving rise to dendritic growth of crystals. These are growths of crystals, as was observed from the SEM images.
Thank you.